Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this wealthmanagement.com Fast Chat. I'm David Armstrong, the editor of wealthmanagement.com. And today we're speaking with Brad Walker, the Chief Client and Product Development Officer at CAIS. Brad, thanks very much for joining us.
Of course. Thanks, David. Thanks for having me.
So, Brad, we know that the alternative investment space has evolved pretty dramatically over the past few years. Certainly better access, better education, better customization. From your perspective, where you sit at CAIS, what's been the biggest shift in innovation that's happened, particularly as it comes from the wealth management side?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say biggest shift. So maybe take a step back. When we started the business, CAIS, the main event back when we started was really about bringing institutional quality access to alternative investment managers into the independent wealth management space, right? And so think about it like folks that had access to alts 12 years ago were predominantly going to be in the wirehouses. So Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, UBS. And our vision was, how do you bring that access to the independent wealth channel? The pain points back then were all about great product. How do you know whether a fund is a good fund, bad fund, or something in the middle? But it was really about access. A little bit about due diligence, right? We brought Mercer to the forefront for investment and operational due diligence. And then what happens after I buy the alternative investment? So getting recognition at a custodian, right? So Fidelity, Pershing, Schwab was a main event, specifically for the independent wealth channel. Over the years, though, like I would fast forward 10 years later, the main event has shifted. And I think that shift is because more advisors are now using alternative investments, number one, and more asset managers fully understand the power of independent wealth management and the type of capital that independent wealth management is going to be putting into alternative investments over the next 3, 5, 10 years. And so everyone wants access to the same channel, right? And I think the innovation that's come about, specifically with CAIS, for example, is really, how do you make the workflow easier, right? If you can get access now, right, because more asset managers want to be in your space, but how do you really make it simple for advisors to adopt the asset class, hedge funds, private equity, credit, real estate, whatever it might be? Do it once, have a great experience, and come back and do it again. And that's really where the innovations come about, is this digitization and automation of workflow for the pre-trade, trade, and post-trade experience. And I think that's where firms like CAIS are really separating themselves right now.
So speak a little bit more specifically about how you've evolved in the past couple of years to address that need or to build that bridge between the asset managers and the wealth managers.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Love a question. So I'll start with the wealth manager first. I think CAIS at its core, we've always been exceptional at building trusted relationships with advisors. I don't think that's ever going to change. That human element, I think, is always going to be there for us. And we always hear that CAIS, we're alongside the advisor along the journey, really helping them understand the what, why, and how of alts. And I think that is at its core, really understanding the advisor, understanding what they're trying to achieve with their clients, ultimately as they construct portfolios. And I think that dovetails into like a final point on the advisor side is we always have the interest of the advisor in mind. And as we've built a platform for alts, for the independent wealth management channel, for that advisor, not like having that advisor interest in mind and listening to our advisor and building it for the advisor has always been at the core. On the manager side, I think it's evolved a lot. And, early on, we joke quite a bit that in 10 years ago, if you mentioned RIA to the asset management community, oftentimes they thought you were saying IRA, right? And now the growth of wealth management in the US, depending on what study you read, it's somewhere between 38 trillion and $40 trillion in the US. and more than half of that's controlled by the independent wealth channel. It is a massive group. And so, and we'll define independent wealth management channel, independent wealth channel in a second here, but I think the asset managers now realize that this pocket of capital is quite large, and trillions of dollars are going to be coming into alts from this channel, that the asset manager is now starting to build for wealth. And I think that's a big evolution. You're starting to see that really over the last, 2 to 3 years, but really the last 9 months it's come about. And what does it mean to be building wealth management within an asset manager? They're building universities for education. They're building products specific for the channel. They're building a team, a distribution team focused on this channel, where before you'd look at an asset manager and their team predominantly was institutionally focused with, sure, I'll take a phone call with an advisor, right? And I think that's changed quite a bit. Lastly, I would say on the asset manager side, where we've really been honing in is, how do you make their experience better? The asset manager's experience. And especially as you start going into wealth management, if you're an asset manager, you should know that you're going to be dealing with more allocators, right? Versus an institution, you typically deal with one person making a decision, one ticket. In wealth management, you're dealing with thousands of advisors that can make decisions for hundreds of their clients. And so CAIS, the evolution over the last couple of years for the asset manager has really been, how do you make their process easier? And things like removing the hurdles or barriers around subscription document processing, right? Helping them understand what an advisor cares about for the trade process and post-trade process, so that they don't have to worry about it. We automate it, and it allows them to focus on what they do best, engaging with advisors, talking about their organization, strategy, and ultimately being a good steward of capital.
Sure. When you mentioned, helping advisors see these, look at these as solutions rather than products, help me understand that a little bit. How are advisors coming to the market, and what are they looking for out of alternatives?
Yeah, great question. So what I mean by that is, quite often an advisor who is new to alternative investments isn't necessarily saying, I need access to ABC fund. Rather, they're sitting back and looking at their portfolio construction today and saying, I'm typically 60-40, right? Everyone talks about this 60-40. But should they be thinking something different? Should they be finding ways to diversify risk, to enhance some kind of return, right? Or potentially look at things that will deliver yield in a client portfolio. That's not just a bond, right? So they'll think of things in that sense, like, I want yield, or I want diversification, or I want growth. How do I express that with the use of alternative investments? And so it's less about buy this specific product, but more about the solution I'm trying to solve for and how I can use alts to get there. And last point I would say is, there's been so much product and structural innovation in the space where, our platform today, we think about our CAIS as a platform for all advisors, because it's not just qualified purchaser product anymore, right? You have more scalable evergreen product that's available for the accredited investor. And if you think about a financial advisor, or where the wealth is in the US, there's more mass affluent accounts that make up, call it 15 or so trillion dollars of wealth in that $1 to $3 million range, right? So historically, that individual or that household wasn't able to access alts because they were available for qualified purchasers only, 5 million and above. Now, with structural innovation, that $1 to $3 million or $1 to $5 million client has an access point.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
Final question. We've talked about how the advisors are coming to the space and what they need out of it. And you talked a little bit about what the managers are, how they're evolving to kind of meet the needs, but maybe not as quick, right? Can you talk a little bit about what the managers need to do and how they're evolving to kind of meet the advisor in that middle ground?
Yeah, I think on the asset manager side, because there's a lot more product hitting the market, specifically in that wealth-centric focus, right? scalable, lower accreditation, more scalable product. I would love to see, and this is what we hear from advisors. It's not so much about how great your product is. It's more about help advisors understand the why. Like, why are we talking about alts today? And what can it do for my clients' portfolios? And then, of course, be able to differentiate your product from the rest. But I think if we all work together, right, and we help asset managers see that no one's going to grab 100% of market share, but if everyone's working together to educate advisors on how to best use this asset class, whether it be private equity, credit, real estate, or hedge funds, or sub-asset classes, I think it betters the overall industry. So one idea could be, while you're out educating advisors, know your competitors and proactively and collaboratively work with advisors to understand the value of using more than one product.
Interesting.
So education's key. Yeah.
Education is key on both sides of the equation, advisor and asset manager side.
Correct.
Brad, this has been great. Thanks very much. We've been talking to Brad Walker, Chief Client and Product Development Officer at CAIS. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, David.